Some conversations will be mind-blowing and you'll sit there and you'll have the most profound change.
Hello. Can't hear you.
Here we go.
Yay! Who are you? Who are you?
I'm Arlen.
I was just thinking, gosh, when was the last time we saw each other in person? And I think it was shortly before I went home last March.
Yeah, wow, it's been a while.
It has been that long. So there you go. So
that's crazy.
It is crazy. I'm just warning you, this is the way I roll these conversations. It's a bit like the whole, there's no fancy schmancy, hey, who are you? And this is this. It's just like we start a conversation. So the beauty of conversation is though that it's real. So this is real.
Yeah, apparently it's just like a regular old Zoom conversation, just a chat.
Absolutely. And it seems incredible actually, because I was thinking about it before. Gosh, when was the last time I saw you? And it was definitely at one of the, I can't even remember what it's called anymore. Down by the water. Down by the water.
Speakeasies.
The speakeasies. I think that was one of the last times we actually saw each other.
Wow.
So that must be.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I think I left here on March. Well, I know I left here on March the 15th last year. So it was definitely maybe 5 days before that date. So there you go. And
it's been a whole year.
I was going to say, and what a year for everybody in different ways, right?
Yeah.
It's kind
it's
of like
crazy.
Where do we start on these conversations? But just to give you a little bit of info and anyone listening to this that's dropping in for the first time, the kind of idea really behind 52 Conversations is just have regular conversations with people who, for some reason, I seem to think have a story to share, and highlights, lowlights. And actually, everybody's got a story to share, and we all learn by listening to someone else's story. And you have definitely always been kind of one of my highlights. I'm gonna say one of my highlights. So the joke has always been, oh yeah, I'll openly crush on Arlen, but really that comes from the first time I heard you sing.
Oh shucks.
My little ears went like that, and then gradually through different projects and different things, having got to know you and recognizing you, so you can do some more oh shucks, to be a very genuine, humble human being.
Thank you, Janice.
That's okay. So because these are going out sort of into the world, who knows who's going to listen to them? So I guess I could start by asking you to share with people a little about who you are, where we currently are, and my disclaimer as well, if the signal goes a little bit, we're just calling that paradise tax, right?
Definitely. It's just part of the package.
Absolutely. So you are Arlen, and who are you and what are you? What is it that people might get from your story?
I'm still trying to answer those questions for myself. It's a little weird trying to explain that to other people when I'm still on my own little personal journey of self-discovery and answering those questions. But I guess we can start with the basics. I'm Arlen Seaton. I think of myself as a singer, a songwriter, and a creative. Whoops. Sorry.
It's real life.
Yeah, that was my alarm to remind me to get back here.
Oh. Okay.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Yeah. We had a paradise tax moment, right?
Definitely.
It couldn't go. So I guess, one of the things I would go straight backwards to come forwards is that we're always still in our journey of self-discovery if we're doing it the right way, no matter what our age is, right? It's the continual kind of learning. So you refer to yourself as a musician, a songwriter, a creative. Yeah, you have had a different path, right? So
yeah. Ever since I was little,
yeah.
I was pretty much convinced that I was going to be a physician.
Okay.
Right.
Can I ask you this question? Was this always just your dream, or was this a parental dream as well, or it was just yours? I want to grow up and be a doctor.
I think there was maybe like some sort of conflation of both ideas. I think it was an honest fantasy at some point. I think it was something that you could do to help folks. You know, I think here we're in Antigua. I don't know if everyone listening knows that. We are in the beautiful island of Antigua and Barbuda. And here parents tend to be tiger parents. Everyone wants their children to be professionals. So doctors, lawyers, engineers. And if you show some hint of promise, they kind of steer you down one of those paths.
Can I ask a question? Do you think that is led by parents seeking status for their, or perceived status for their children?
Sometimes, I think, to be fair to my parents, I think what they wanted was to ensure that my brother and I had some sort of security.
Profession.
You know, yeah, so something stable, something that enabled us to provide for ourselves. Sure, there might be a little want of status sprinkled in, but I think my parents were more concerned for us. They wanted my brother and myself to be able to have things that they couldn't have, and do things that they couldn't afford to do in their time.
Cool. So that was the journey that you set out then. So you went to school, and all through school, etc., it was all focused on, I'm going to go to medicine school, I'm going to learn to help and heal.
Yeah, and high school here gets people streamed into a certain career path pretty early. So from the time we're in third form, which might be something like ninth grade, we're asked to select subjects that have to do with our end goal. So I was probably 14 years old when I started studying sciences. And I had to choose to do sciences instead of doing art. You couldn't do both at the time. And so you do high school and you study sciences, and then you do your A levels and you do sciences, and then you go off to undergrad and you study pre-med. I did get some sort of flexibility in undergrad because I started as a music biology double major.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask the question: when did music start to become important to you? Was that back at school as a child as well, that it was always part of who you were?
Yeah, music was always very important. My dad is a minister of religion, and so we've always been in the church. My parents themselves love music, so music was a big part of our home life. But as part of church, you're doing several different choirs, a boys' choir here, youth choir there, even school choirs when I was in primary school. So music has always been important, but it was never a feasible option to make a living until much later.
Okay. So talk me through the path of the undergrad, pre-med, and then when and how the decision came to actually follow what I guess really you would define probably as your real passion for what I really want to do.
So I think for me, it wasn't a cut and dry decision because I didn't hate medicine. I don't hate science. I'm good at it. I like it. But it was a safe choice. It was a pragmatic choice. In undergrad, I decided, you know what, let me try to do both at the same time and balance them out. But because it's so rare, I guess, for students to want to pursue both music and a science degree seriously at the same time, the curriculum wasn't set up at my school for people to do both. There'd always be clashes. And at some point, I had to choose because I can't be in two places at once.
So can I ask the question I don't know the answer to either? Did you study here in Antigua at med school?
I went to undergrad in Atlanta, Georgia. I went to Morehouse College. Okay. Martin Luther King Jr. School. That's where he went to school.
Okay, cool. Well, that's a good choice then, right?
It's a great school. I had a great time, and because it's not so large, I got to know all of my professors. To this day, I'm still friends with some people who taught me there.
That's cool.
And these are people who kind of helped guide me and mold me in the direction that I ended up taking.
Cool. So you came to this point where I can't be in two places as one because I'm just not that clever. What shall I do?
So what I ended up doing was choosing pre-med. I decided, let me stick to the plan. Let me do this biology thing, and then I'll apply for med school. But I did voice every single semester while I was there, and I would take music classes where I could every semester. I crammed my schedule full, and I was very, very busy. So I might take my chemistry books and I will sneak them into a practice room with a piano, and I will study in the practice room because people at Morehouse were very serious about music performance, and it was tough to get into a practice room. So I knew I had to basically hog my space. I'd go in, I'll study my chemistry, and then during the breaks, I'll practice piano or I'll practice voice. And I found myself in the practice rooms a little bit more than I found myself doing the other stuff.
So I'm going to ask you a question. Was that just because you felt an inner connection that was stronger than anything else to be in that musical space? Was it
definitely, for sure?
Was that feeling?
For sure. Yeah.
Cool.
It was sort of like it was a safe place, but also just like a natural inclination. It's kind of just what I wanted to be doing at any given point in time.
Cool. So you did that, and then ultimately,
I ended up applying to medical school after I got a scholarship to go to medical school here in Antigua. So it's an American school, but it's offshore. So we do the first 2 years of our tuition here on island, and then we do rotations in affiliate hospitals in the US. And what ended up happening is that because I'm at home, I have friends in the music industry, and they kept calling, "Hey, Arlen, we need help for this and we need help for that." So I ended up in the studio very often. I would be doing different stuff. I'd be running recording sessions with other artists, or I'll be doing backing vocals on other artists' songs. In exchange for the free labor at the studio, they would let me write my own demos and record. And so I had almost an album's worth of songs that I'd written while I was in med school without any real intention of doing anything about it. I just kind of spent my free time doing that because that's what I like doing.
Yeah. And because I guess it was soothing your soul in the right way, right? It was feeding.
Yeah.
It was feeding you what you needed to be fed for that inner growth of self.
Yes, and I got really acquainted with the process. I got to see the things that I loved about making music, because it's so wide. There's so much you can do in music. There's so much involved in moving an idea to something that you can listen to on the radio, and it's where I first got my first bite into working in music.
So you did the whole of your 2 years that you were supposed to in Antigua?
Yeah, I did 4 years of medical school. So I did my 2 years here, and then I had to say goodbye to the studio. I did my first board exam, and then went off to do my rotations. I didn't have as much interaction with music as I would have liked when I was doing rotations. However, when I was in Atlanta, I had done some work at hospitals in Atlanta, and my old voice coach from Morehouse would call me up and say, "Hey, Charles, if you're in town, you should come by. We could do a voice lesson."
Cool.
And so I would go whenever I'm in Atlanta. He would call and I would say, "Hey, let's do it." And he'd give me a session just for old time's sake. You
Cool.
know, and that was really important to me because this is someone who taught me 10 years ago.
Okay. So that person's still really important in your life.
Definitely. Dr. Foster is a big deal to me.
Cool. Dr. Foster, he'll have to listen to this because he gets a shout out. So you're doing what you're doing. You're doing your rotations.
So I'm finished my rotations.
Okay.
And it's now that point in your career where you're done with medical school and it's time to apply for a residency spot so you can continue your training and start working after all that hard work.
Yeah.
And I'm filling out these applications and I'm paying for stuff and I'm writing to folks and I'm getting on the phone. I'm trying to see what my next move is going to be. And I just couldn't figure out why I was even doing it to begin with.
That was a question I was going to ask. When you were filling in all those forms, were your heart and head kind of at what I'm going to call jihad with each other, going, "What are you doing this for?" Because I have to.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to.
Even if you are in love with medicine, it's a stressful time for every recent graduate. The process starts even before you're done. You're trying to get yourself a spot because what was it all for if you don't get to work after you're done? And so it's stressful on its own. But for me, it was the stress of the process on top of the existential stress of not knowing if I'm about to waste the rest of my life doing something that I know I could care more about.
Yeah. So when you were going through this kind of shall I chante, did you share that with your folks? Was that an open conversation or was it all an internal, or with your music people saying, "Oh my God, I'm really wanting to do this. Yeah, I feel I should do this because look, I've just done all of this time and all of this money has been spent, etc., right?"
I tried to be tactful and I dropped little hints along the way. And, maybe after first year, I'm saying, you know what, parents, things are going okay. I'm passing all of my classes, but I don't know if I like this.
Okay.
And they're like, "Oh, it's okay. Just see it through." And they were very, very encouraging. And then I would finish the basic sciences, which is the classroom portion of my medical education. And you do your rotations. But until third year, maybe you don't really have a good idea of what it's like being an actual medical professional. But then in third year, you start getting into the clinics and into the hospitals and have more hands-on training. You get to interact with patients and you get to be in that medical setting. And the point is, especially in third year, you get to try the main specialties to see how you fit in. You get to do peds and you get to do surgery and you try different things to see what appeals to you. And I kept dropping hints to my parents, "Hey, I've just done peds. Peds sucks. The kids are nice, but the parents are terrible. I don't think I could do this for the rest of my life." And then you do something else. Family medicine is great, but it's a little bit boring. Everyone has high blood pressure and diabetes, and I don't want to be forcing people to eat the right things for the rest of my life. And so I'm hopeful, but each step along the way, I'm saying, "Guys, you know what? I'm not sure about it." And I think closer to the end, I had a discussion with them and I said, "Hey, look, you're hopeful that I'll find something and I'm hopeful too, but there might come a point where I've tried as much as I could try and I still haven't found anything. I'm letting you guys know that I don't feel pressured to practice medicine for the rest of my life if I don't like it, because life is way too short."
Yeah. So how did they take that?
They were mortified.
Okay.
I mean, initially when I started having the conversation, I don't think they took me seriously. Okay. But after I had started applying and I realized, you know what, if I do get into a residency program, I feel like it might not be something that I want to celebrate. It feels like putting a final nail in my coffin. And when I realized that...
Consideration of what you felt maybe you were giving up.
I think what happened was that it was more of a realization that I was not doing music for all the wrong reasons. I knew that there was this other thing in music that I would do if it were a completely communist society.
Yeah.
And you don't have to work to eat. You don't have to worry about earning a living. You just do the thing that you feel like you were meant to do.
Yeah.
If we were given the choice, I knew that I wouldn't be doing medicine. I knew that I would be making music. And then I had to answer the question, if you do have children at some point in the future and they say, daddy, daddy, I want to do this thing, can I honestly encourage them to do that thing that they dreamt about doing, knowing that I myself hadn't been honest with myself and done that thing for myself?
I think that's a great point, and it makes me think about myself and my daughter. So historically, a million years ago, instead of going to college, I just got myself a job as an au pair and ran off to Germany at just under 17, right? And let's just say I partied very hard for a long time. It's fun. And it was often a conversation from my daughter before she was leaving school and thinking of those things. Well, what would you do if I did that? And there were these times where I would scratch my head and think, oh God. And then I used to say, well, I just want you to do exactly what you need to do to be happy, Nicola.
Yeah.
And I think when you can come to that space, I guess my hindsight is I've done the right thing up until now. It might have been a varied path, and some people would perceive I've given up great corporates, jobs, and ran away to the West Indies and blah, 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 blah. But hey, I'm really happy with all the choices I've made along the way. And I think it's a really grown up, mature thing to be thinking for yourself. When I'm in the position to have children and they ask me these questions, how will I respond?
I didn't want to be the hypocrite. I didn't want to be the one to say, hey, follow your dreams. If you pursue your dreams, the money will come.
Yeah.
And even if the money doesn't come, you'll be satisfied within yourself that you've done what you have to do to be true to yourself.
Absolutely.
How do you give that bit of advice knowing that you never took it?
Absolutely. Well, you would be being incongruent to yourself, and you would be not acting from integrity with yourself, wouldn't you? And it is hard. And I will tell you this, that when you are a parent, there are times, that, I mean, my daughter Nicola has been a model student and a model daughter and a model married person now. She's doing great and she's always been very assertive. But there were times where I thought, oh, should you be getting married at 22? And I'm like, but that's her journey, not my journey. And she's very like me in some ways and very like her father in other ways. And we just, as parents, we have to hope that we've shown them all the right stuff without judging them, right? Or trying to push them down roads that we know aren't right for them.
Right. And so, I mean, to my parents' credit, I think what they were trying to do wasn't so much force me into some path that I didn't want for myself. I think they wanted to be supportive. I think they felt like there were points in my journey that might have been difficult, and maybe Arlen was giving up.
Yeah.
I think they wanted to be supportive, and it just took a lot of difficult conversations to help them see, what, it's not because it's hard. I'm okay with hard stuff. I did okay. I passed my boards. Medicine was not that difficult. It was challenging, sure, but it's something that I could do if I wanted to do it.
Yeah. So ultimately, when you said, okay, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to do this, by that point, were they on board? Or was
no.
There was a widening gap.
No. Not happy. They weren't happy. I think for them it was sudden. Okay. Because I don't think they had really internalized that I'd been saying maybe not maybe not this medicine thing. I think they kind of thought this is a passing phase. He's saying this now, but maybe he's just stressed.
Yeah. He'll realize when he gets to the end of it all that this was the right thing to do.
Yeah. Or maybe once he gets, once he gets through to the other side and it's no longer that tough, he'll come to his senses. So let's not pay him any mind. And when I was done, I said, okay, guys,
I'm done.
I'm not doing it. And they tried to bargain a little bit. Okay, if you don't, how about you do residency and then decide?
Yeah.
Or how about you do a year of internship at Mount St. John, which is the local hospital here. That way you can get your license to practice in Antigua and you'll be in a better position to figure out what you want to do after. But for me, it just sounded like investing even more time in something that I knew I didn't have any interest in doing long term at all.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it sounds to me what was going through my mind. It's like you're bargaining for the time of your very own life, and you're like, hold on a minute, you want to steal more time from me when I know I'm really not into this thing. I know it's not for me.
Yeah, but I also had to recognize that over the course of my entire journey, I had gotten other people to invest in my journey as well. And my parents were definitely not among the least of them. They put themselves in debt to get me through undergrad, you know, and even if outside of the financial stuff, they were there supporting me every step of the way. And so I had to sort of reconcile to myself, you know what, it's my choice ultimately because it's my life, but it's not my choice on my own. It was a community thing because I had a community supporting me.
Yeah. I mean, that's where your humanity and what I would say is your humbleness and your generosity of spirit would be respectful enough to know I've made this decision. Yeah, I have to now negotiate however I do it to get these people to see that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And thank them for everything that they've done.
And I think that was the biggest question for them. Not so much, you know, is my son going to be a prominent doctor, but is Arlen going to be okay? I think that was the biggest question that they had. What's going to happen to my boy?
Yeah.
You know, is he going to be a starving artist? Like, what if it doesn't work out? And I had to explain, you know what? Not all doctors are well off.
Absolutely.
You know, you could fail doing anything. Yeah. But I'd rather fail doing the thing that I feel like I'm meant to do than fail doing something that I really don't even like.
It's so funny, isn't it? Because we clearly, you know, our parents, they always want the best for us, and sometimes they just won't understand. I can remember when I gave that corporate world, when I said I was going to get divorced, my dad thought I was crazy. He was like, well, what are you doing? Why would you do that? And then ultimately there was an understanding, and that, you know, thankfully there was that understanding. But I also think it takes real strength of your own to really know yourself, to be able to stand up against that and say, this is what I'm going to do, and it is going to be okay, because I'll make it okay no matter what. And I think that I guess that's resilience, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a lot of questioning, and I wasn't always sure of how it would work out. But I knew that you'd find a way because we don't really have a choice.
Absolutely. I'm going to do this. So you made that choice. So how did your transition from the sort of one life lead to not ultimately where we are now, but, you know, the steps in that path? Because I think there will be people listening to this, and I want to say age is irrelevant. I know so many people, I've had clients, friends, conversations where they waited too long to do the thing that they really want to do. Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and a great book, Big Magic, she refers to it as the call. And we kind of get this call, this story keeps coming back to us of this thing that we really want to do. Mm-hmm. But society and the programming of parents and teachers and what we're supposed to have to make us the model people, i.e. the right job, the right car, the right house, the 2.5 children, blah, blah, blah. And there might be something in you that says, but I don't actually want any of these things. So then I call that the awakening. So if you get the call and the call keeps coming, finally you're awake enough to take the call. And then you set out on your path, knowing that it's not necessarily going to be clear, yet absolutely bloody determined, I'm going to take this path and I'm going to follow it through.
Yeah, and I feel like all the material stuff is open for anyone who actually wants that, regardless of what you choose to do.
Yeah.
You know, but then that's just the material stuff. You can make money doing anything. I've always believed that. I don't think you have to be a doctor or a lawyer to do well financially, but then are you happy? And there were a bunch of doctors who I'd had to study under. And many of them felt like this was their thing. My surgery professor in Augusta, he knew that he wanted to be a surgeon. That's all he wanted to do. That's all he wanted to talk about. That was his whole life. And he was happy. And I had many professors who were just like that. They felt fulfilled. They were answering some sort of greater call. And that was their thing. But there were also many of them who weren't happy.
Yeah.
And as doe-eyed students, we'd look up at them and we'd ask for advice, and we'd ask them what we should do, and they'd frankly say, you know what, if I had a choice, I'd go back and go to B school instead of going to med school.
Do something different. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, that realization that these people have all these things that we thought we wanted, and they're so unhappy.
Yeah. So what's that all about? I'm not going to follow that path. So tell me a bit about the transition then into, okay, it's going to be music.
I'm still transitioning, and it's more of the responsible route. So at the start, out of respect to my parents, I decided, you know what, since I'm not doing exactly what they want me to do, all of these loans and these debts that they've accrued on my behalf, I'll figure out a way to just handle them on my own. So that was step one.
Cool.
Deciding I'm gonna pay these bills on my own. At the time, I didn't know how because I wasn't making enough money. I was working at a clinic.
How old were you then?
I don't know. How old am I now? This would have been I would have been late 20s, maybe about 29.
Yeah. So it's a mature, responsible adult decision that can say, I've made this decision and now I recognize that my folks have put themselves into this financial position. I'm going to take care of this myself. That's another sign of your integrity and your respect.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't necessarily seeing eye to eye.
No, for sure. I get that.
But I had to recognize that they are where they are and we were where we were because they believed in me and they supported me.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to leave that on them. And so now I'm deciding to pay my own bills, and of course they're okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I'm gonna do it. I had a friend named Hani Hashmi, who I had started working with musically a few years back while I was still in school, because I decided I wanted to work on some music projects, and we fiddled a bit. Nothing serious, nothing that ever saw the light of day, but he was a good acquaintance, a friend. And I said, hey, honey, you know what? I've made this choice. I don't know what to do. What now? And so, of course, Hani's response was, let's start a band.
I was going to say, let's do something with that then.
So we started the first band that I was ever a part of. Myself, Hani, and another friend and singer, Vanessa Gittins.
So
and
what was that band called? Did I know that?
That band? Yes, you do know that band. That band was called Black Gold.
Yes.
That band was called Black Gold.
That was a good band.
It
it was that there were vibes that were certainly for me. So music is really important to me, for a multitude of reasons. Just it's something I really connect to. But one thing I really found myself starving for in Antigua was everything that wasn't fet. And if people aren't aware of the Caribbean culture and music and their ideas of music, a lot of their ideas of music and my ideas of music are nowhere in the mix. And I just remember when I heard you, I was like, oh my God, that's something I need to hear more of. Do you know what I mean? So, and I think you found that yourselves anyway, didn't you? People were like,
yeah, it was good vibes, and we were different because everyone. It was more than just the music. It was a sense of camaraderie and fun.
yeah.
And it was sort of a big adventure for us all because we couldn't wait to see what would happen next.
Yeah.
As a group, we were performing original music, stuff that we hadn't had out on the radio. You had to come to experience our original music, but it was
original music was so good. It's so good still.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very important part of my development because I am naturally pretty introverted. If I could, I probably would perform on stage behind the screen so no one had to see me.
I have to compliment you on this because there was a part of me I was thinking, I wonder how chatty Arlen's going to be. So for people listening to this, they'll think, oh, he can talk till the cows come home. But I have had so many times where I would try to talk to you originally when I was first stalking you, and you think, but we're kind of shy, we're quiet, we don't really like to talk. And I'm like, no, come talk. Do you know what I mean? Even on my radio show a couple of times, it was just like, come on, I've got to pull some conversation. These guys are amazing. Come on, talk. So that I see that change in you massively.
I'm not the biggest talker still, but I think I'm getting more comfortable. And I think Black Gold was the beginning of me saying, you know what? I said I want to do this thing and I really like making the music, but it doesn't make sense to make the music and then hide.
That's right.
You know, so you have to kind of suck it up and be okay with people seeing you. So I'm still getting used to people seeing me. I don't crave the spotlight necessarily.
It's a growing area of comfort, I think, or moving from the comfort of discomfort. So people will always assume that I'm an extrovert, and I'm completely not. I'm an introvert extrovert. So if I want to talk and I want to be there, cool. But I could organise an event like this and sit on the sidelines, right, and just do the organising. I don't need to be in the thick of the party. I don't need to be out all the time. If I want to be out, I'm out. But I'm definitely like a bit of I'm back here. So it's kind of interesting because I get exactly what you're saying. Yet equally, if you're going to be as talented as you are and put yourself out there, you have to come more into this zone of being seen as well as being heard.
Yeah, and also if you're sharing, then you share.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of what it is to be a musician. It's sharing your experience or your viewpoint with other people. And I can't make this music and then just make myself completely unavailable to an audience or people who might want to get involved. So I'm talking a little bit more than I used to.
It's really good. So for people listening to this that know nothing about it, then Bliss was this crazy idea I had to sort of bring a different kind of feel to something in Antigua. So it was like Black Gold need to be on the list. And I'm just getting a few goosebumps now thinking of that, because my whole thing was everything has to be original. And then there was this amazing Sam Cooke collaboration at one point, wasn't there? I must find that and see if we can put it in here. So as you started to do more with Black Gold and other artists, I guess you just became more comfortable in yourself and knowing the direction you wanted to go. Is that right? Is that kind of how it went?
More comfortable. I'm still asking questions and I'm still trying to put the pieces together and figure it out. But definitely, I am not where I was on that very first Bliss that we did.
No.
Not quite the same, Arlen.
No.
I've started since doing more stuff on my own. So Black Gold is no longer a thing, unfortunately. No. Most of the guys are still cool with each other, and you know, some of us still perform together and stuff. But we've all moved on, and I have set on my path of the solo singer-songwriter person. Yay!
Yes. So from going from being part of a collective to more on your own, has that transition been as easy as you hoped it would be? Is it do you feel more in control because it's just you?
Well,
although obviously you have a support team and you have people who are helping provide and get you out there, but it's
right.
you.
I mean, Black Gold wasn't a means to an end. I never felt the need to have a band to pursue a music career. I didn't think it was necessary to begin with. I thought I just needed some songs. I needed some songs to get into the studio, record them, put them out. Black Gold was about the camaraderie and it was about the friendship and the experience of it all. So I don't think
connection that gave you, I guess.
Right.
Creative connection.
Right. So it was great and the vibes were important and the songs that we came up with were beautiful, but it wasn't necessary for me as an artist. It helped me pay my bills.
Yeah.
And it was good times, but I think Arlen as the artist existed outside of that. And so I think I've just continued to explore on my own, as I would have done regardless.
Yeah. So do you literally now just follow where your heart wants to take you in terms of what you produce and what you put out there? If someone were maybe wanting to collaborate with you, would it have to have all the feels, even if they were some amazing person that was super well known? Would you still have to have all the right feels to go put your name with their name?
I think it would be music first. So I think we decide about the feels after if the music feels right, then we go with it. I don't necessarily care who the other person is. It could be Beyonce, but it could be the next door neighbor who I heard singing in the shower and realized, oh wow, this is something special. Maybe I want to work with this person.
So it would be the sound of the music though that would create that connection, right?
Yeah, the sound or the message, something that strikes a chord.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about it's an EP, I guess. Is it an EP that you have out? Or
I don't even know what it is.
I was like, what is it? What do we call it nowadays? I mean, I know there's some beautiful songs on there.
I think it's probably going to be more like a succession of singles. Mm-hmm. I think that's where my head is at right now. While I was still in med school, I met a producer named David Cisco who works in New York. And he sort of mentored me while I was still in med school, saying, hey, Arlen, you should definitely finish school. And I don't think you should give up medicine for music, but I'll be here. And so when I made my decision, I called him and I said, you know what? Hey, Cisco, I have decided to do music full time. And so he continued mentoring me. He gave me writing exercises and introspection exercises, gave me questions to ask myself, and kind of gave me or pointed out subject matter, things that were important to me that might be worth writing about because maybe those things would be important to other people too.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think often it takes other people to see us and say what they see for us to go, oh yeah, okay, because we don't see it ourselves, right?
And even if I did see, even if I could see it, maybe I wasn't looking. Yeah. Even if he didn't know the answer, he was the one to say, hey, take a look and see what is that thing that you have to say. So I started writing a little bit more when I was still in school, and when I was done, I wrote even more, and just curating a sound and ideas. So now I have a bunch of stuff, and I think the time came at some point last year or year before. Was it year before last when I decided? Yeah, time is flying. And
this crazy year that feels like it's been forever, but in other ways feels like it's 5 minutes. It's actually been a year.
Yeah.
So it puts us at, I guess, what, 2019, the end of 2019?
So end of 2019, I decided, let me try to see if I could get a project together. I'm not sure what it'll look like. I'm not sure how I'm going to fund it. I don't know if it's going to be an album or if it's an EP. It depends on, how things go. But let me try to do something with the intent of putting it out, starting a career as a recording artist. And so I did. I got some help, and you might have been involved. Definitely were involved.
Here's the thing. If we are, any of us, ever in a position to see somebody who's got something that we believe more people need to know about that, then I believe that most people will help in any way that they can. And, that's just the way we should all be operating. It's literally like being in the queue, and if the person in front of you hasn't quite got the money to pay their shopping or buy their coffee, pay it forward. So
it was really touching and important for me to experience that, just like the good of humanity, because I couldn't do it on my own.
No,
there was just I couldn't figure out how to. I didn't have the means to get this idea off the ground, and I knew the idea was important to me, but it took other people to help me get a start. So I really, really appreciated that.
Well, I think those people are appreciative of what you're putting out. So I remember listening to some of the footage. Are we going to call it the footage? The sounds, and some of it was like, oh my God, what the fuck? I've never heard Arlen sound like that before.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think, equally that was like the juiciness of it. It's like, because we had this idea of what we think we know, and then you hear something completely different. And I was like, okay, we need to get people on board with this. Do you know what I mean? And clearly everybody else felt the same. So, the process of moving towards those things, and Queen Supreme was the first one. Is that right?
Yes and no. So after we got the project running, Cisco and I whittled down a list of maybe 40 or so songs to, I think, maybe 3 to 5 songs. Yeah. And right when we're about to start getting everything produced, I'm chilling at home, and I'm at the computer playing around, and I got a little bit of inspiration.
Yeah.
I started fooling around with the keyboard and singing, and I recorded a voice note, and it was just a lot of fun. And I sent it to Cisco just to share it, not with any intention of pursuing that one, because we spent weeks deliberating on what songs we should work on. The list was final, you know what I mean? We had already decided. I was just sharing it. And he's like, oh my God, Arlen, do you really want to do this? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, this song is not. So the last song that wasn't even on the list ended up being the first song that we did. Queen Supreme. It was a lot of fun. It's very different to my usual vibe.
Yeah.
But at this point, I feel like I'm kind of doing a lot of exploration still with sounds and with people too.
Yeah, I'm a dedicated lover of Queen Supreme. So for everyone that's still listening to this conversation, they're going to get to hear it. So that's cool. So collaboration with other people as well.
Yeah, it's a team sport. So even Queen Supreme is a culmination of my vision along with Cisco's. It doesn't sound like what it would have sounded like if Arlen had the reins all to himself.
No.
And it doesn't sound like what it would have sounded like if Cisco had the reins all to himself. And so you asked earlier if Arlen kind of gets to decide what the sound is. And the truth is not 100%, because music is a team sport. Unless I am
Collaboration,
writing everything and producing everything and recording everything and mixing everything and mastering everything on my own, then you're gonna have collaboration between other people in the process, and everyone in the process is an artist in their own right.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just partnerships and trying to be
writing all your own stuff though.
Yeah, in terms of lyrics and melody, maybe the basic chord progressions and some of the basic production ideas are mine. I usually do the rudimentary production, and then I would send it off to Cisco, and he will edit what I've done and add his own ideas on top of it. I'm now working with some other folks from the UK. I'm working with Dennis White and Chris Bourne, and they're helping me out as well. Yeah, but it's not just my sound alone. It's a shared sound.
Yeah. So lyrically, when you get inspired to write, are there specific times that it comes? Do you say, right, I need to write something, or is it literally just something happens and then you start?
I think in the past it's been random, and I've noticed it happens more often when I'm exercising. I don't know if it has to do with like blood flow to the brain. I don't know what it is.
All
but
the
usually
chemical getting released, right?
Yeah, all those endorphins and the extra oxygen flowing, whatever. But I'd have to stop and take a voice note of this great idea, and then you take it home after the high has settled down, and you have to work on it. But I think I'm getting more used to structured writing, which means, Arlen, it's 8 o'clock now. At 3 in the afternoon, you're gonna sit your ass down at a table, and you're going to write. And it might not be great, but you're going to write. And so it happens both ways now.
Cool. So have you ever journaled or done something like morning words, like from the artist's way, things like that, where you just sit when you first wake up and you just empty your mind onto a piece of paper? So a lot of creative people, the artist way is a really well-known thing where it's called journaling, morning words. I mean, journaling has become really popular, but it's literally you just empty. You say, you wake up and it might be, I have to write this whole page before I go do anything else. I'm not going to reach for my phone. I'm not going to reach for all this other stuff that we've got going on. You just kind of brain dump stuff. So I always think it's really interesting to see how creatives create the space to be creative. So
right.
Brenda Lee Brown, who I know you know here, who's an author, writer, great lady. I mean, she said through this kind of this COVID space, as we're going to call it, she found it really hard to write.
Yeah.
She found it really easy to draw and create art, and to visually represent her creativity in photos. She just couldn't do the normal writing thing, and I think it's really interesting.
For me, it's also kind of similar. I usually create in one medium at a time. So I've written way more poems than I have music, because during undergrad, that was my thing. So literally hundreds of them. And I used to read a lot of poetry and a lot of prose as well. But I would find that if I'm writing poetry, then I'm not writing songs as much. If I'm doing neither, maybe I'm painting instead. Okay. So when COVID started, I started painting a lot.
Okay. What kind of paintings?
It depends. I'm usually into stuff that are a little bit more realistic, but lately I've been experimenting with pours, so acrylic pours. I don't know if you're familiar with those.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Yeah. Cool. Isn't it interesting that for all the things that COVID has brought many of us, which is not great stuff, I'm also recognizing there's such clarity in other areas of our lives and leaning into the things that really feed us, and becoming more aware of, you know what, that's toxic, that's not good for me. Barriers up, boundaries set, and just lean into whatever the thing is. And definitely everybody I know that's creative and artisty has probably opened up in more ways, and it seems in some ways pulled back from the things that I've most known them for, which I found really interesting. And I guess it's just different neurons are firing for whatever reason, right? It's like, I need to do this instead. I mean, from my point of view, obviously I've loved music, and my experience last year when my dad died, I couldn't listen to music for about 2 months, and it kind of blew my mind. And it was almost, well, you can't possibly listen to music. If I look at it retrospectively, it was, I wasn't allowing myself to listen to music because I enjoyed music, and I shouldn't, paradoxically, not be enjoying myself, right?
Yeah.
And I don't remember ever making that conscious decision. I love physical reading books. I couldn't read. And then the only thing that I could do was move my body, even though we were in lockdown. It was like, move, walk, hike.
Right.
You know, with a mother that was saying, oh my God, if something happens to you and you're in lockdown and you've gone further than 5 miles, and I'm like, I don't care. They'll have to chase me. Do you know what I mean? And I think there was a lot of that in a lot of my friends. People turned or leaned into things that might be unexpected. I guess, yeah, that's just part of the journey. So I'm going to ask a big question now. If you had stayed in the medical profession, how on earth do you think you would have found this whole COVID scenario that the world has been going through? Super stressful?
I'd be overworked and underpaid.
Yeah.
And I mean, I still have a lot of friends who are on the front lines.
Yeah.
And they're doing the best that they can, but they're at risk. They're making their contributions and they're saving lives, but it's a big sacrifice that they're making.
Absolutely. We need to move away from the weight of COVID conversations, don't we?
Yeah.
They are very weighty. So what is next? I mean, obviously one thing that's been massively missing. So at the start of the COVID thing, way back, me personally, I was involved in prepping for this Bliss, the 3rd year of Bliss, Aidan's amazing 50th birthday. They were all plans. And then obviously the loss of all the outside entertainment and people being able to get into their vibes. So obviously the guys, Gemma and Taslin, came up with Soothe Sessions, which obviously you've been on. How did you enjoy that? Was that cool?
It was interesting. It was definitely nerve-wracking for me.
Really?
Because, yeah, for sure.
Because?
It's all original music. And at the time of Soothe Sessions, only one of the songs from the set had been out there. So I knew that it would be the first time that many of the viewers would be interacting with me as an artist and with my work. And so the pressure was on to make sure I did the material justice.
I think you did.
I mean, I tried my best. And the band tried really hard. We didn't have a whole lot of rehearsal time. We got together maybe just twice before filming, and so it was fun. It was a lot of fun, but it was also kind of nerve-wracking.
Stressful. I think they came up with a really good thing there to kind of, what I would always say to them, they were feeding themselves, right? Because they started Soothe originally because they needed to feed themselves with what they wanted. And I guess, obviously, at the beginning of everything as well, Soothe got cancelled, blah, blah, blah. And then there's all this creative juice that was still there and still needed an outlet. I mean, how do you see Antigua, as an example, moving towards freedom again in terms of being able to see a live band, a live gathering? How is that? I mean, even now, I'm like, how is it going to be possible that we can do these things anywhere in the current?
I'm not sure if we're close to that as yet.
No.
I think it'll be a while because Antigua is actually having a bit of a spike right now in terms of COVID contraction rates, and even a few more than usual have been dying in the last couple of weeks. I think it's going to depend upon how many people get vaccinated. It's going to be dependent on how people stick to the protocols, masking up, social distancing. I think until then, we're going to have to find other ways to adapt, like doing virtual shows for the artists, you know, and just kind of have to admit that the status quo is going to be a little bit different for a little while until we can be safe.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously safety first. Yeah. People need to be fed of the things that, I mean, I always say that the human condition is connection. And I think we're all massively craving the connections that we were so accustomed to. And it's how we seek to find that connection. And obviously throughout this whole thing unfolding, loads more people. Zoom is the thing. Remote working is the thing. I mean, that always made me smile because I thought, well, yeah, but I've been working with clients remotely for like 8-9 years. Yeah. All of a sudden, you know, my brother has just onboarded on a brand new job. He hasn't even been into the physical space of where he's working. It's all being done from home. So many people like that. But you know, the normalcy of getting back to being able to go to a theatre, being able to listen to a live band, it's just those things, I think, are things that really fill us. So however we can do it in the interim, we just have to keep doing what we can, don't we?
I'm actually performing with a band now.
At Jumbie?
At Jumbie Bay and at Curtain Bluff, and I do a 2-person thing at Carlisle Bay. But we make sure everyone's masked up. We make sure we don't have much interaction with the audience in the way that we're used to. And it's definitely different.
Yeah.
It's still a privilege to be able to play at all, but it's different. And I'm not sure. I think people are resilient and creative, and I think we'll figure it out. Someone's gonna have some brilliant idea for the in-between time before we can be together like we're accustomed to.
Yeah, I mean, in the UK, in the summer when they had a little hiatus and things weren't so bad and we were all allowed a bit of freedom, they did have some concerts where there were literally these little pods that were scattered across the field, and you had to be. And I just looked at it and thought, no, that's not what going to a concert is about. Because it was like, yeah, you got to listen to it, but you were not connected to the energy and the vibe in the same way that we're used to. And I guess that's what people are missing, right? It's how do you recreate that?
People are trying different things, even like drive-in concerts and stuff are stuff that people have tried. And I think it's just trying to make the best of a not so great situation.
Yeah, we've got to keep going, right?
We do.
And get out of the side. So I'm aware I've taken loads of your time and I could just keep talking, but I won't. However, I'm going to ask you to give some nuggets though, because I think there will be a bunch of people really inspired by this conversation in terms of being tenacious enough to follow your path and not give up, yet potentially also have followed a path to try and do the right thing by yourself and by other people's sort of wishes in the best for you. So if there's someone out there that's listening to this and they're kind of in the struggle of they've taken the call and the call is there and they know this thing they really want to do, what would be any words of advice that you would give them?
I would tell them that things work out when you don't focus on the obstacles, but more on the objective. You have that thing that you want to do. Don't focus on why it can't be done, but focus on the way that you're going to make it work. And how you solve the problem and you move forward. You see the obstacle as a problem to be solved, because there's always an answer, even if you can't figure out in the moment, because you can do that thing that you really are burning to do. It's not impossible.
We're going to take that. You can do that thing. I love that, because there's such conviction in the way that you say it, and you can do that thing.
Yeah, for sure. It can be done. You just have to figure out why. Don't give up on it.
There you go. I love it. I love it. So we're gonna fit some music into this.
Yay.
Perfectly and seamlessly, hopefully. And we're going to put all your links so people will know where to find you, where to find your music. And I just really want to thank you for taking the time out to do this. And
thanks for having me, Janice.
I really hope to see you in the real before I leave the country again.
That would be very nice.
Absolutely. We'll sort it. Maybe I'll sneak into Curson Bluff or Carlisle Bay and have my ears open and my face covered.
Yeah.
Cool.
That would be really great.
It was awesome speaking. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you for letting me be part of this and your big thing. I know this is a big deal to you. Yeah. You're doing your thing too.
Well, you see, it's accountability. It's a bit like you. I'm putting myself out there. So it's kind of, I have to do it. But
it's important for you to do it, not just for you, but for the rest of us too, you know.
Well, I'm hoping that it's more important for everyone else, because I really do. I think I'm really lucky that I get to speak to and meet amazing people. And even when I work with my clients, they teach me so much stuff. And I have all these conversations, and I've been saying it for years and years, and people have been saying to me, you should record them, you should record them. So this is my concerted effort to hopefully share a little bit of a change, a little bit of a learning, a little bit of a light bulb moment for people, because we all need that. So
yeah,
myself,
I'm proud of you and I'm grateful to you.
Well, I'm proud of you and I'm grateful for you too. So we should end on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
Adios.
Bye.
Watching, and you sing when you think there's no one around. But honey, you have got a magic, you can't hide it. It's like lightning through the clouds. Yeah. There's no reason to be shy. You're the greatest of all time. You're Serena, you're Beyonce, you're a queen. The rhythm is your dispensation. It's just physics if they're staring. Ignore the crowd, scream out loud. When you feel it, you say, you let go, it's okay. And it feels so good. You let go, it's okay to lose control. You let go, it's okay. And it feels so good. Everybody know when she's on the scene. She's a queen, supreme. Feels like make-believe. Yeah. I heard you left a path of lonely heart, looking for something you've never seen. Come on. But you don't need no alibis. You're the greatest of all time. You're Serena, you're Beyonce, you're supreme. The rhythm is your dispensation. It's just physics if they're staring. Ignore the crowd, scream out loud. When you feel it, you say, you let go, it's okay. And it feels so good. You let go, it's okay to lose control. You let go, it's okay. And it feels so good. Everybody know when she's on the scene. She's a queen. Let the music break down your illusion of control. Give in to the moment. Give in to the moment. Forget about the things that you can't change, just let it go. Give in to the moment, give in to the moment. You let go, it's okay to lose control. You let go, it's okay to lose control. You let go, it's okay to feel so good. She's on the scene. She's a queen. You let go, it's okay to lose control. You let go, it's okay to lose control. You let go, it's okay to lose control. You let go, it's okay. She's a queen.